What are the challenges that are giving you nightmares?
Yeah, like we want to see an ethical approach to AI. We don't want AI to take the place of our clinicians, but we want it to kind of be like their superpower, like they're the widget that helps them accelerate through their work. And so that way they can really focus on delivering care to clients and as opposed to spending their time doing administrative work. But also we want AI to help recommend. So like one thing that we're facing as a field is that there's not enough providers as there are need for providers. So there's so many more children with autism who need services than there are providers who can provide those services. So as such, the training has been so much more expedited and streamlined than it was when I was in school or received experiential training. And so with that, we want to make sure that our software and processes are training those clinicians and giving them really good experience through our software and processes.
Welcome to the Convergence Play podcast.
All right. So I think the great starting point will be let's start with your own journey in this field. And I think if we can connect that with your vision for Centria Health, I think that would be great.
Awesome. Great. Well, I started as a clinician, went to grad school, have my doctorate in psychology, and I started working with children with disabilities and then specifically, autistic children. I started up my own practices, a few of them. And during that time, I had a lot of training and experience in building products, not necessarily software, but like
Right.
curriculum and trainings and things like that. And so in my creation of businesses and products was very like a system design approach. And so with that, I had some friends who created software and sold to one of the largest or the largest EMR in ABA. And so, and we were having conversations, and so they pulled me in and and had conversations with the CEO of the EMR about purchasing my intellectual property that I built around some of these products, and particularly curriculum and trainings. And so with that, through conversations, they purchased my IP, but the tongue in cheek thing was that they were like, we really just want to purchase you. We want your brain. And so I came over and worked for the technology company, and through there, that got more experience with like an intense training around creating products and software and the needs of our field more generally. So, and taking like a SaaS view of it, right? And that it's business to business, and we're trying to create solutions that accommodate everyone. And that includes different ways of running a practice, different ways of providing therapy. And even my team that was focused on a lot of the curriculum generation, it was a little hard in that, like, you're creating this beautiful thing, but then you deliver it and you don't know how they're going to use it and if it fits all of their needs. And when you're dealing with hundreds of organizations, it's not always going to be the perfect puzzle pit or puzzle piece to fit their
Right.
needs. So it was always kind of like, I really hope you use it the way in which we intend. But so then, from there, I started working at Centria. I've known our CCO, Tim Yeager, for 15 years, maybe more than that. And at Centria, we have a software team that designs our own EMR. So we don't contract with anything external. We built it all ourselves. And that includes the practice management side, billing, scheduling, all that kind of stuff, medical records, as well as clinical solutions and collecting data, analyzing data, delivering therapy. Um, and so it's now unique in the sense of like compared to my past history, it's like combining my past histories is like I get to create something specifically for an organization and I know how they're going to implement it because we design it specifically for the needs. So that's like something that's unique in my experience now that I haven't had before. And that it like we can push more innovative care models than like the EMRs that are more business to business. So that's really exciting. And with that comes, you know, there's some pressures that we're facing right now, which we can talk about, but if we're able to get out of this like sticky medical payer being defensive over our services, then it really allows us an opportunity to innovate, where I would love to see us and like my team and I are talking about, we call it centers of the future. And, what clinicians get into this field to work with clients, not to have their head buried in administrative paperwork, right?
Absolutely.
And so if we can create and this involves, like, facilities and building structures and cameras, all of it. So, like, if we can bring in AI to assist the clinician in recording moment-to-moment behavior data, and that's, like, on skill acquisition, that's on behavior reduction, identify how many times the clinician needs to, like, deliver the demand or prompt or, like, assist the client in particular ways, and it can classify the behaviors that are going on in that interaction. Then it allows because we have layers of people who provide therapy. We have our frontline technicians who provide day to day, the bulk of the work, 20, 30 hours of therapy a week. And then we also have our clinicians who observe the therapy that's being provided, make changes to protocols, work with the clients themselves, but it's like, 3 to 5 hours a week. And so both of them, we want them heads up, engaging with the client and really fostering more of that interaction and facilitating learning opportunities as opposed to, oh, let me scroll and find this program. Let me take the data. Let me search for this. Oh, let me type up this change that I'm making, right? And so if we can create systems that automate a lot of that stuff, that pick up on it, that can be voice activated, use a lot of some voice AI scenarios that allows the clinician to get back to their roots prior to, like, we're still a new field or a new industry with respect to being governed by insurance companies. And with that came a lot of red tape. But early when I was in grad school, we still didn't know what lane we're going to choose. Are we education? Are we medical? And with that, didn't require all the rigorous documentation. And so with that we had a lot more freedom to just solely focus on the client and then do a little bit of documentation on the tail end. But now that we picked a lane and we're medical, and with all that comes tons of documentation and understandably so. But with that detracts your ability to really be present with the client. So if we can bring in some technology and really innovate with care delivery, then we can get more in tune with our roots of having that connection with the client. And with that, it expedites outcomes.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for sharing this story. And
Yep.
I think the thing I love about what we talked so far is you are in a space where I think the EMR, there are so many EMRs out
So
available out
many.
there. It's so
Yeah.
saturated market, and but regardless of that, you chose to develop your own EMR because it shows that you are really concerned and you take care of the right workflows for your patients and for your customers. This is so important because with all the medical subfields out there, I think even the best EMR out in the market are not equipped with right workflows, right
Yep.
screens,
Yep.
configurations in place. So I think this is really interesting path you have chosen, which really stands out because, of course, what typically happens is that organization they just find the EMR that matches closest to what they need,
The
and then
closest. Yeah.
they survive on that, and they find ways to and they manage workaround on the challenges they run into. So I think it's a very smart approach. Of course, now this comes with its own set of challenges, as you were
Absolutely.
mentioning.
Yeah.
You probably have a team of tech engineers and software developers in
We
house
do.
who are doing that, or
Yeah,
you
it's a blend. We have some in-house and then some that are contracted. So
okay.
it's a blend. But yeah, we have different dev teams and product teams that work on different parts of the software. We have a mobile app as well as a web-based app. The mobile app is primarily used for technicians, those people who are with the client day to day. Our web app is primarily for our clinicians who are like, think about it like nurses and doctors, right? If you want to think about it, right? And so it's like those who just come in as a percentage of the amount of time that the technicians are with the client. But yeah, like to your point, so for example, there's tons of scrutiny right now in the medical field around documentation, slashing rates, justifying care, and, like any other healthcare provider, we go through audits from our funders. And for example, one recently, we went through and they're like, here's all the great things that you're doing, but here's the things that we need you to change. And we need you to change it within a month. And so if we were to have a contract with an EMR that maybe needed to make those changes, like, but because it was a feature that we would have to say, "Hey, like, it's this big funder that we're dealing in this one state, and maybe they don't have anyone else, it's not a need or something." We have to advocate for it to be on their roadmap, and good luck having that change within
Two
a month.
years.
Yeah, exactly. It's not 1 month, it's 2
Industries,
years.
they tell you is 2 year, and even if you follow up after 2 year, they will say, "Oh, it's been pushed a little." I
Yeah.
mean, I'm speaking from my own experience
Yeah.
because I do come from this experience of building digital health products, and this
Mhm.
happens everywhere, especially
Yep.
with EMRs. They have their own roadmap, and they basically serve the purpose of the biggest population of their clients. So, for example, if the
Absolutely.
biggest
It's biggest
population of
companies.
clients are
Yeah.
mental health, for example, they will revamp every workflow. But if it's not, then good luck
Yeah,
getting those
yeah.
changes in the system.
Absolutely. I saw the same thing when working for the EMR is that the companies that had and it was I mean, it makes sense. In a way, in that, like, we want this to impact the majority of their users, but that roadmap is dictated by a small number of companies that have the largest client base. And that doesn't necessarily mean that it is the best level of care that's being provided. And it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be innovative with the development of the roadmap. And so, if you, as a company that's not as like the enterprise level, say like, "Hey, we're gonna get shut down if we don't make this change." And
Yeah,
this change, when we submit to our payers, it increases time exponentially because we have to then get it out of your system, make the change, then submit to funders, then have it get back in the system, right? You know what I mean? Then it makes it really cumbersome and onerous on the side of the organization, and then the clinicians, and then that organization can see clinician turnover because they're like, it's so hard for me to do my reports because I have to do it this way in the system, but then I have to download it and make another 2 hours worth of changes. And it's like a domino effect. So we luckily get to avoid that. But sure, like it's a huge expense. It's an investment into our own company. It's, you're funding a whole department and the trials that go on with that. But the good thing is that we get to build it for how we run our business and
Right.
how we deliver care. And we get to, because clinicians are a part of that conversation, we get to drive more innovative care delivery than other EMRs do, because oftentimes clinicians are not in those conversations or don't get it informed the roadmap.
Yeah, absolutely. And for the other EMR companies, I think it's purely understood from their point of view as well that they have to balance their own business priorities and roadmaps. So I want to ask you a little bit more because I think it's a really interesting session we are having. So, what tech stack you have chosen for this EMR, for front end, for back end? How are you? Which cloud you are hosting
Yeah,
it
those
at?
are things that that's not my department, unfortunately. I'm more on the
Understood.
product side and not the software side. And yeah, so I'm not fully aware. Like we did have like an older version, it's our 1.0 version. It wasn't built in Java. There was some like
Okay. Yeah.
way archaic with respect to technology. We are now fully migrating over to our 2.0, but
Cool.
so it's a little bit more flexible, things like that. But yeah, I'm not unfortunately savvy enough to answer the technology that
And
level
these days, technologies are changing so often that I mean, it's even hard for
to
for
keep up
us to
with it.
keep
Yeah.
up with that what's being used at the moment. No problem at all.
Yeah.
So, as I understand, Carrie, the biggest thing you're trying to improve is the automation for documentation part of the thing and administrative and operational part of the thing
Yeah,
using technology.
we're trying to, yeah, definitely that, but also we can't just have a focus on efficiency. It's like with the cutting of rates, there's two paths that you can take. You can be like, all right, how are we going to trim the fat? How are we going to be efficient and reduce any overhead or bloated time or cost in processes? That's needed. But then you get to a point where it's just so lean, you can't get lean anymore, right? You can only trim so much fat off of that steak. But you can cook the steak really well still, right? And so it's like we can't let our foot up off of innovating care delivery. So one thing that we're doing is making sure that we have all the data and like a data framework that we need in order to justify care. So we're having conversations with payers and funders. Like again, we're like, as an industry, ABA is like just in kindergarten in comparison to other medical fields
Right.
who they have all this stuff laid out. They know, like, if I'm a heart doctor and a client comes to me with some sort of heart failure and they're this age with this BMI, with this diet, with this, all of these different things, blood pressure, like all these other things, they know how to treat. They can say they can make X amount of progress in 2 years. We as an ABA industry don't know any of that. We don't have client profiles and look at progress or outcomes in a matter of like 2 years based on a client profile. We don't know variance of profiles. We can't tell you how many gains that they make. We have essentially like one data point with respect to outcomes that we can communicate with insurance companies. So when you're looking at that structure, process, outcomes, a lot of our data are around structure and process. Very little is truly in outcomes, because as a field, everyone they can't decide upon what our outcomes are. And so when we're talking about, I can look at like a single case and say progress is being made at a very micro level, and it's very individualized and it's very nuanced. But in having communication with funders, they're that that's not important to them. They're not looking at a single case level. They're looking at an aggregate, all my members as a whole. How are you going to create outcomes that are significant? And when I say significant, not only are improving their quality of life, but reducing overall healthcare costs. And
Got
we don't have any data to talk about improvement in quality of life. We don't have data that talk about reduction of healthcare costs as a whole, not even reduction of our costs, but ER visits and appointments with specialists and all those type of things, healthcare or hospital stays, because a lot of our clients that we serve They will engage in behaviors that can be destructive to their own body, which then result in an ER visit, or they have co-occurring diagnoses that amplify some challenging behaviors for them, that and how they navigate the world, that require prolonged hospital stays or very specific provider meetings with specialists, things like that. But we
That's
don't have access to any of those data. So what we're trying to do at Centria is we're going to start collecting those data. And we are trying to have conversations with other leaders of the field so that we as a field can agree upon what these data are, and we can drive to those, so that way multiple organizations are having the same conversation with funders. But but also, until we get the point where, like, we know this is where we need to go. And so as such, we're going to build the data framework to report on these. And if we're the only ones, then we'll be the only ones, but at least we know what layers of data the insurance companies are asking for. And right now, the other EMRs are not built that way. They're really looking at efficiency as the outcome, and that's not a client outcome. That's a process.
Understood. Understood. Totally makes sense. So one important aspect, which of course you might be looking at, is the integration. Of course, in this whole healthcare ecosystem, no one can survive alone. No matter how good of a system you have built,
Sure.
you will have to integrate it with other entities, with other systems. So on your integration roadmap, what do you have in plan?
Yeah, I will say our CIO is more upon, he'll look at integrations, but he first wants to see, he's like, "Oh, we can build that." So there's a lot of things that he likes to do in-house, with integration being the second choice. Some of our integrations are more, I think, of the technical side, and not so much about like user facing integrations, things like that. A lot of the thing, like even Pendo, like we don't even utilize Pendo. That's something that he's like, we can build those things, we can build them, and it'll be faster and cheaper than it would if we just, because I think he's looking at, like, like across 5 years, if we just built it, how are we getting, like the ROI behind that? So
Absolutely. And of course, there are always situations where in-house solutions are better than what's available in market in terms of ease to use and
sure.
in terms of overall cost, because typically it's better to bear one-time park cost than going with subscription models on
Yeah.
and not having enough flexibility as well. So,
Absolutely.
Kari, I want to ask you, I really getting a sense that you guys are really, really ambitious, want to go fast, wants to go ahead. Do you really feel that you have the right team in place in terms of scalability or in terms of flexibility?
Yeah, I think, uh, we have we have a lot of people that's been with us for years, which is, they are prized possessions because they know parts of the software, that to a degree that is really impressive. And so there's a lot of that. But we also are, as we're bringing AI more into our systems and our software, there's a wide spectrum of talent out there, and it's kind of sometimes hard to piece through. Some people maybe talk a good talk and maybe don't show up with skill sets. Some people show up with skill sets that are exceeding what you think. So we're still like it. There's instances where we are looking at, you know, uh, like, I like to take the approach of slow to hire, fast to fire. So it's like really dive in and learn more about the person, and like get references, and then and let's start on an easy project. And if that project doesn't work well, then peace be with you, this is not the place for you. Or if the project works well, great, let's then build upon that, and now we have a working relationship where we can really move fast and approach big initiatives. We have a lot of developers that have been with us also for, like, even though they're consultants, some of those consultants turned to be employees of our company that have moved to the States to work at our company. And that while we still have the consultant branch, that is a relationship that's been in the works for years. And so there's a lot of yeah, we have a really good team, and we're looking, there's new people that come and join and new consultants that we test out and things like that as we embark new frontiers. But like anyone else, sometimes it's a good fit, sometimes it's not, but for the most part, our team is really solid. Really impressed with our team.
So it looks like that the overall philosophy of Centria is more to have more people on as part of internal team than using a lot of vendors or external consultant. Am I correct to assume that?
Yeah, like I said, we have some contractors, but it is they as a to the naked eye, you wouldn't know that they're a contractor versus an internal team member. And yeah, so we rely on vendors less often than we do kind of like a contracting team that we have. I want to say there's two that we reliably use and have had relationships with for multiple years, as opposed to little offhand contracts here or various vendors of integrating their software into ours.
Understood. So let's talk about, we are in last, I think, 5 minutes of our conversation, and I think I lost track of time because it's so
Sure.
interesting. Uh, let's talk about the big picture vision you have,
Yeah.
where you want to be in next 3 years. What excites you for that, and what scares you for that? For example,
Sure.
what are the challenges that are giving you nightmares?
Yeah. Well, I would say the challenges that are giving me nightmares is just where we're at right now. Like a lot of what we want to do and innovate is we don't have capacity to do that because right now there's a new regulatory compliance and defensibility of our services that are popping up every day. Like something new since in the last 6 months has just been wild. And so a lot of that has adjusted our roadmap that we had planned for, the remainder of 2025, 2026 to meet those compliance needs. But so let's create a future in which those compliance needs are met and we have capacity to innovate. Then yeah, like we want to see an ethical approach to AI. We don't want AI to take the place of our clinicians, but we want it to kind of be like their superpower, like their the widget that helps them accelerate through their work. And so that way they can really focus on delivering care to clients and as opposed to spending their time doing administrative work. But also we want AI to help recommend. So like one thing that we're facing as a field is that there's not enough providers as there are need for providers. So there's so many more children with autism who need services than there are providers who can provide those services. So as such, we like the training has been so much more expedited and streamlined than it was when I was in school or received experiential training. And so with that, we want to make sure that our software and processes are training those clinicians and giving them really good experience through our software and processes and through that care delivery innovation, so that way they don't have to rely on getting it in just the university and practicum placements alone, but that they get it through their first day on the job and can develop even after they're a clinician, because you still have to grow, right?
Thank you so much, Carrie. I think it was a great conversation, but I think the thing I loved about our conversation was how deep you are into technology and how you are going to use your EMR and AI and the roadmap you have. I think this really stands out, especially the approach you use to build your own EMR for your workflows is really, really impressive. It's really stands out because not everyone is doing that. And I think with AI coming in, and you have the right mindset to use AI on ethical basis. And is they want that AI should think on their behalf as well. But what you have, I think that's my impression that you have mindset is that you want AI to give you a little bit challenge to think in the right direction and then make the decision. So I
Yeah,
think
we want it to be a guide. Yeah, say like, "Have you thought about this?" And you can be like, "Yeah, I do, but I don't like it." Right? And allow the clinician to be the ultimate decision maker. Absolutely.
absolutely, absolutely. Thank
Awesome.
you
Well,
so
thank you
much
so
for your
much for
time.
this conversation.
It was a great conversation, and I will be in touch, hopefully for next steps and follow up to that as well. Thank you.
Sounds great. Have a good one.
You too. Thank you.